This is Talk is Sheep, the official podcast of the Wild Sheep Society BC, brought to you by Sitka Gear. Come along as we bring conversations that matter to you into the high alpine. This episode is sponsored by our conservation partner, Precision Optics. Thank you Sitka Gear and Precision Optics for investing in healthy wildlife and sustainable ecosystems. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back in the studio today, and no stranger to the Wild Sheep Society BC. Anyone that's been to one of our fundraisers is going to recognize our guest today. And Don Lynum is a longtime supporter of the society and previous award winner. I think, Don, you won the Lex Ross Award
Yes,
back
I did.
in the 2019-2020 area there. And Don just been at our fundraisers for years and longtime supporter and just one of the old guard that when they walk in, certainly recognize the name and the face. And you've been certainly involved on the Spike Cam platform there. Chuck's had you on over there a number of times and great support there as well. And so just great to have you on the podcast, Don. I thought we'd jump on here. I know you're such a enthusiast on guns and conservation and wild sheep. I thought we'd have lots to talk about today.
Oh, for sure. Well, thanks so much for having me. It's always a pleasure. And anytime you talk guns, it's all, that's something I like to, especially custom rifles. So, I've probably had over 100 custom rifles built, so that's always fun. So, you nonstop. So whenever there's a new cartridge out, we always try to put one together as quick as possible and go and test it out. Yeah, it's always kind of neat. But did you want to start with the BiG BoaR raffle or rifle or?
Yeah, one thing actually before we do that, I'm a little curious about what sort of started this passion, Don? Like, where did you sort of, like, obviously a gun enthusiast, that's and I don't really need to go down that rabbit hole, but where did you sort of this idea of putting, and I know you're not a gunsmith yourself, like you work with some excellent guys in the Lower Mainland, Gary Flack, and I know you've worked with Mitch Kendall and others too, but where did this passion come from to start building these customs and stuff?
Well, I think it just morphed, probably, hanging out on huntingbc.ca there. And that's where I actually met Dave Marsh, just online. It was kind of a funny story, but, we, probably one of the fellows on HBC, I believe he's part owner of Pachaco Sports. He was building some custom rifles. And so it kind of, he built a 280 Ackley on a Defiance Rebel action, and it was a beautiful rifle, and it kind of intrigued me, and so that was the first rifle I had built was on a Mark V 6-lug action. It was a 280 Ackley, and just so happens the barrel I got for it was quite heavy, and the gun, it kind of took away from the lightweight platform, and so ever since then, every time I try to build a rifle, I try to perfect it, and probably lately, really with the implementation of Gunworks Climber stocks, it really has changed the makeup of how you shoulder a rifle and how it shoots. And that's probably what really got me going into it, is finding the perfect hunting rifle every time you shoulder it, so that's, but probably from HBC that got me going. And then, meeting Gary Flack through Dave Marsh. And he was just in Langley, so it was very handy he could be over there in 20 minutes and talk guns. And, he was really good to help me out and point me in the right direction. So, yeah, and that's just morphed into something stupid, I think. Kind of a passion. Well, but yeah, I love shooting. Probably love shooting more than anything else. So, I spend a lot of time at the range on my days off.
Well, just the curiosity, what range do you go to, Don?
Mission range. I've been for 30 years or more.
And how many rounds would you say you put down range a year, give or take?
Oh, easy, a couple thousand. Yeah.
Is that right? Eh?
Yeah.
Right on. So you build a system, and then you go out and you shoot it. And what's are you obviously, like, do you do all your own reloading and stuff too? Is that all part of it?
Definitely. So hand load a lot. Yeah.
So you're doing the hand loads, and then like how often will you go out? So you'll make up a load, go test it, and then
Yeah.
okay, it's not tight enough tolerances. You
Yeah,
back
so
out and
generally when
tweak
you
it.
build a custom rifle, this is what I do. I mean, everybody's different probably. I always start with some factory ammo. And I'll, depending on the cartridge, I'll run 3 or 4 different types of factory ammo through it at the range when I break the barrel in. Um, Generally, it's a benchmark barrel, and they break in pretty easy. After about 40 rounds, you're good to go, and a few cleanings, and you're on your way. But with in that regard, like I said, I use factory ammo to get it sorted out and see what it likes. And I very rarely do you ever have a custom rifle that doesn't like some form of factory ammo. And then once I get it broken in, then I start hand loading for it and go from there. And I usually with every rifle you're at least 3 or 4 trips to the range, right? So it is time consuming, but of course I just live in Maple Ridge, so it's 30 minutes out to the range in Mission, and it's nice there because it's funny. I ran into a young fellow at the range a couple of days ago, and I said, "Where do you live?" He says, "White Rock." I said, "Well, that's quite a drive." He goes, "Yeah, but this is the best range around in the Lower Mainland. We've got 25, 50, 100 meter, 200 meter, and then 300 yards for the range there. So it is nice for load development and as long range shooting as you can get in the Lower Mainland, really, unless you go elsewhere.
Right.
So
Um,
yeah. So anyway, every time you build a custom rifle, it does take a bit of, you know, it's time consuming for sure, but I
mhm.
enjoy it. It's my hobby, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, awesome. So okay, so you build up a rifle, and you've been so generous, and you mentioned the BiG BoaR and the donations to the society. So there's the donation aspect, which I'm going to dive into in a minute here. But before we do that, if you don't donate it, what do you do with it? Do you end up
Uh,
flipping it? Do you
yeah,
sell it
I
or?
do sell a lot of them, but the trouble with a custom rifle is you very rarely ever make back what you put into them, and so it's that's why I end up I don't mind donating them because they go to a great cause, and they usually raise more money than the rifle's worth. So that's for as Gary Flack always says, we do it for the sheep. So um,
It's amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I do sell a lot. Lately, of course, the cost of building a custom rifle is skyrocketed. When I was first started doing it, it was about, and it depends if you just rebarrel an existing, donor rifle, or if you build it from scratch. You nowadays you build a rifle from scratch, you're talking about anywhere from about $6,000 to $8,000 in parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not cheap anymore, where it was a few years ago. Ever since COVID, things seem to have just gone right off the rails in price.
Mm-hmm.
But
Um, Don, can you talk a little bit about the genesis of the BiG BoaR series, and how that came to fruition and what that's all about?
yeah, so I met Dave Marsh online actually in Hunting, BC. It was a funny story. I was sheep hunting in Spence's Bridge with a friend of mine, Lyle Baudouin, and Richard Hepner, who was he was a guide up in the Yukon. And this is going back quite a few years. And it was my first time sheep hunting. And so we're in Rainbow Canyon, in just north of Lytton there. And I find 4 rams in a valley bottom, and I'm pretty sure one of them's legal. But I'm hunting with a policeman and a guide, and if I shoot an illegal ram, I'm sitting there by myself, wondering what I should do. And I thought, well, I'm not shooting it because if it's illegal, these guys are going to string me up. Anyway, so I tell this story on HBC, and Dave Marsh says, "Oh, were you hunting with Lyle Baudouin?" And as it turns out, Dave had gone to New Zealand hunting with him, so it was kind of a funny story that he actually recognized we were hunting with the same guy at one point or another, and so our friendship kind of grew from there. So then he signed on as a director. Gosh, I don't know what year that would be, 2016, maybe 2015. I
I
think
think it was
2016.
15 or 16. It
Yeah.
certainly was 16, if not earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we'd go for lunch after we met online there. We'd go for lunch every couple of weeks talking, mostly hunting gear, rifles but mostly gear. Dave was just getting into hunting, and he went at it pretty hard. So, and I'd been, hunting for a long time, so we had lots of backpacking stuff to go over, and just different stuff. When we started deer hunting, we would just take a backpack and a sleep bag, go in the alpine, and sleep under a tree. We never even had a tent, right? So our gear morphed pretty quick into once I met him and then talking to sheep hunters. But anyway, getting back to Dave, so we'd meet every couple of weeks for lunch, and finally one day he approached me and said, "Would you like to donate something to the Wild Sheep Society?" And one thing led to another. We started talking about, well, let's donate a gun, because I had donated a couple on HPC for a raffle, so I guess he figured I was a good mark to pick on. And anyway, so he wanted a Remington Model 7 and 7 Mod 8. I wanted to do a Weatherby rifle and build a 280 Ackley. And anyway, so we were joking about it back and forth. So we finally went over and he introduced me to Gary Flack, and Gary suggested we buy a Kimber Montana as a donor rifle, and then he would rebarrel it and do some custom work to it, and which he did lots of them. He was very good with any control round for reduction. Kimbers especially, it was kind of his thing he liked. Those days you could buy one pretty cheap, sometimes $800 to $1,200, and then just buy a barrel for $300 or $400, and you pretty much got a custom rifle, because they had a great trigger, they had a carbon fiber stock, and all stainless action, controlled round feed, and you put on a world class barrel, and you pretty much got a poor man's custom rifle, we used to call it, right? So, so the first one was actually a 7M Odd 8, and sadly in 2016, Dave passed away. So in 2017, at the first rifle we donated, he never got to see it, and incidentally, the fellow that was I think he was the president of the Wild Sheep Society of Alberta won it, and the gun was absolute tack driver. I had my nephew at the range with me, and we were shooting factory 140 grain AccuBonds out of it, Nosler ammunition, and I shoot it, and my nephew says, "Uncle Don, the first shot hit the paper, but you missed it. You missed the whole target." I said, "No, Dylan, I didn't." So we walk out to the target, and sure enough, all three shots were in the same hole. So he couldn't believe it. So then I said, "Well, you shoot," and he shot a group almost the same size. So ever since then, he's been a believer in benchmark barrels as well. But, I'm trying to think of the fellow's name that won that rifle.
Was it Rob Kopecki?
Yeah, yes, Rob Pecky. Yeah, and he
Right.
actually took a round with that rifle, and
Huh.
he was on with Chuck here last year. But anyway, so that's where it started, 2017, and now 2026 will be the 10th year. And we a couple years into it, you talked me into. We talked about renaming it the BiG BoaR, which was Dave's online name on most hunting forums, and we renamed the rifle the BiG BoaR Raffle in memory of Dave Marsh. So, and anybody that doesn't know Dave Marsh, he's actually the founder of the sheep hunting platform on Facebook, which is just colossal now. He would be so proud to see how it's growing, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, yeah, just same too. I just met Dave, just kind of got knowing him, and I was still getting involved with the society, and then he ended up passing away that fall, and he was on as a director, and then it was that kind of inspired me to get involved at that point as well. But I never really got to know Dave like I thought I
Yeah,
would. So
and I wasn't great friends with Dave, but we were good, I guess, buddies, so to speak. He did come up to our cab one time, cat hunting, and spent some time with him and Barry Watson, and my brother and my son and my nephews were there, so we had a pretty good time of it, right? He was a real character. He had this sense of humor that was second to none. Yeah, he had me spit my coffee on the keyboard many mornings on huntingbc.ca. Yeah, and for a guy that never come from a hunting background, and he got into hunting in a big way, like he would pick an animal and he would delve into it, and so I kind of lived hunting because I work so much, right? I live vicariously through his hunting trips because he was very successful, and every time he picked an animal, he would go at it hard, right? Like, I always joke that he was a professional hunter, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, and he was very successful. He was one of those guys that just he's methodical, and he was a smart character, but and he went at it, like I say, went at it very hard. So he was,
Well, and
yeah.
he was
His
so
his
good at
stories, his
writing.
storytelling. Sorry,
Yeah.
Kyle, but his
Yeah.
stories were captivating. Right? You'd
Yeah.
start reading it and you couldn't stop. And
Yeah.
bugger, he'd start a story, say an elk hunt, and it would span over about 4 days. Well, it'd drive you crazy because most guys put out a couple paragraphs and some pictures, and you're happy, but not him. He'd drag it out for a few days and make you wait. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's exactly what I was thinking. His stories on HBC, him and Omer, like rubber fist, like Omer's stories
yeah,
and Dave's stories. They were just like you kind of just
captivating. Yeah,
yeah, you couldn't wait to
you
read them,
couldn't, you
right?
couldn't, yeah, you couldn't stop reading.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that one of those capstick novels, Death in the Long Grass. You started reading and you couldn't put it down. But
Hmm.
and his humor, he was so sarcastic. Like he loved his love of vortex scopes was kind of comical because I guess him and his brother went grizzly bear hunting, and they put a brand new vortex scope on his brother's rifle. Well, they hardly got out of the truck and it was fogged up. So he made lots of jokes about vortex scopes. It was pretty funny. So he loved them. So I
Yeah.
always put that there whenever I'm talking about Dave and his love of vortex scopes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Don, you talked about the BiG BoaR series, and that was a legacy that was born from that relationship, and it's your vision, and you've worked so closely with different gunsmiths, mostly Gary, but also Mitch as well. I think you said, tell me the numbers. How many guns and how many years?
Okay, so I've actually donated 20 rifles to the Wild Sheep Society in 10 years. So this is the
Wow.
20th rifle, actually. And I think we've had two that weren't custom built. They were, factory rifles.
So you think of that, and that's pretty phenomenal. Like, I don't think there's any of those rifles that we've sold less than 10,000 tickets on, and I think most of them were 20,000 in tickets. So if we were conservative when we average that, we could say 15,000 in ticket sales on 20 rifles. That's $300,000 in revenue that program has generated, and that goes directly to our conservation efforts because our gaming money supports the projects that we do. That's a pretty heavy lift over a long period, Don.
Yeah, it's nice to. The one thing about it, yeah, well, it's great. That way I can donate. I can't put any time in because like I say, my work schedule is so with we got people like you, and we have so many people that donate time, and I can't do that. So the rifle thing, that's my contribution, and of course, like I said, I get the fun part. I get to shoot them all the time. So whereas Gary or Mitch, they have to build them. It's the hard part. I think they enjoy it too. So, but yeah,
Uh,
it is amazing, and I'm glad we can raise as much funds as we do. It's and again, I always say, and Gary says it every year, it's for the sheep. So, um,
hmm.
which is nice. They without people like yourself, who knows where the Wild Sheep Society situation would be in, or the wild sheep situation would be in Canada or British Columbia as a whole. Like it's you guys do so much. It's just amazing.
Well, and I think that's the thing we talk about lots. I talk about this is sort of, and your name always comes up when we have this conversation, Don, is that it's a bunch of people doing a lot. Sometimes some people a little less, some people a little more, but a
Every
lot of
bit
people
helps.
doing a lot of heavy lifting. And you start taking pieces away out of it. You take a Don out of it, or you take this guy or that gal or this company or this donor or this volunteer, and it all kind of starts to fall apart. It's kind of the malaise of everyone sort of moving in the same direction. That's the power of what we've created, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And you, you know, you really need to mention somebody like Omar Herbenik from Precision Optics because I don't know if anybody has raised more money for the Wild Sheep Society than him overall. I'm not sure what the numbers are, but I've got that guy on a pedestal. I'll tell you, he is, first off, he's an amazing person, and
Hmm.
runs a great shop up there. Anytime you need something, he seems to have it, or has the answer for you. And he's a very straight shooter. He's just a good guy to talk to. Very passionate as well as in hunting, right? So, he's just a great contributor, and I always look up to him, right? And I wish I could do more but he's on a different scale than I am. I'm just an individual, So, and like you say, every little bit helps. So.
Oh, that's exactly it, Don. It's all these little pieces, and you're right. There are some people like the superstars of the world are Lex Ross Award winners, the Dons and the Omers of the world. But every little tiny piece helps, and some
Yeah.
people just they can only do a little bit, and that stuff is a big deal too. And then there's other forms. It's interesting. I talked to a guy like you or a guy like Omer, and they're like, "Well, I can't donate my time, but I can donate other things. This is my," and you can see like, oh, I wish I could do more on the volunteer side, and then the volunteers are like, oh, I wish I could give donate more money towards the cause, and it's like, well, no,
But
it's just
you got to have a bit
yeah.
of both for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we need a little bit of everything and everyone moving together. That's the
Yeah.
that's the symphony that we've created, and that's the beautiful music that comes together. And you start taking any one of those pieces out, it just starts to sound like something that's not a symphony.
Yeah, absolutely. And another guy that we should recognize too, as of late, is Chuck Peeling, and with Spike Camp. I've donated quite a bit of stuff to him, a few rifles and optics, and some of those sheep hunting books by Bill Pastrick. And they've raised lots of funds as well. So which is good. I think the last he raised almost $20,000 on the last raffle there. So, and that once a year he does that, and or twice a year we get something going, and yeah, it all helps, right? So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's all about building on that community and the conservation work and the love for the outdoors and all that stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the other thing. Well, from the first time when Dave talked me into going to the convention, and I met lots of people I knew there as well, and then a few guys. The one thing you'll find out about sheep hunters is there is not a more passionate hunting group and group of conservationists on the planet. Especially in British Columbia, we have some amazing people at those shows. Like, they just unbelievable, right? They are like I said, and I learned so much just the first two times I went to it. And for um, my brother and I went for a fly-in shortly thereafter, and we had an awesome trip. We never got around, but we seen a lot of sheep, and the scenery was spectacular. And Bill Patrick gave me some advice, and a couple other fellows that I had first met at the show, and it was great because they were very helpful with not only gear and advice, right, but probably the gear thing too. You'll find sheep hunters, when it comes to gear, there's nobody more passionate than a British Columbia sheep hunter when it comes to gear for sheep hunting or hunting in general, right?
Yeah, yeah, well said. Let's talk a little bit about the Big BoaR for 2026. So we've actually got two guns in the hopper here, and so let's talk about the our 2026 plan and what we got going on there.
Okay, well, I think you have a 6.5 PRC it's got a benchmark barrel. It was built by Mitch Kendall, that one. I actually picked that rifle up from a fellow in the Queen Charlotte Islands. I don't recall his name, but I did some modifications to it and some upgrades, and it turned out to be a beautiful lightweight. It's on a Defiance anti-action benchmark barrel, and if I recall, it's an AG composite stock on it and Leopold scope. It turned out to be a real nice rifle, and it was very accurate. And then this year, uh, 25 Creedmoor come out, so I was all excited about that. So we built a 25 Creedmoor on a International Barrels HMB action with one of their barrels, and it's the Hold My Beer action. which is kind
I
of,
was gonna I
yeah.
was gonna
And
ask
it,
you what does HMB stand for. I know you
yeah,
love saying
HMP,
it.
yeah. So hold my beer, and actually, it's funny. The on the action, it actually has a picture of a beer, which is kind of cool. So, and of course, they're right in Chilliwack, and it's very accessible, and their prices are reasonable for parts. So, and Gary's helped them out with some contours and stuff on their barrels. So they give us a break on a barrel and an action. So that was very good of them. And then I picked up a stock from online from Pure Precision out of the U.S. And we had a challenge coin embedded into the stock, so that's going to be neat. So it's chambered in 25 Creedmoor, and I've had it to range a couple times, and so far it's shooting okay. It's not the factory ammo, the Creedmoor factory ammo isn't shooting quite as good as I like, but my hand loads I produce for it seem to be shooting well. The 101 grain LRX and some N555 powder. So yeah, so it's turned out to be a really nice rifle. It's a little bit heavier than a sheep hunting rifle usually is. It's around 8 pounds, but I usually like them a little lighter if I'm going to be backpacking them. But yeah, so it turned out really nice. I don't know if your viewers can see that, but they can see the challenge
Wow.
in the stock. Pull it up a little bit more there.
Boy, that's a nice finish, eh?
Yeah, so it's it's exposed carbon with black paint on it. I wasn't sure about the grip. It's a little thicker than I like, but it at the range, the gun you don't even. There's no recoil to it at all. It's just an amazing gun to shoot, and the action, feeding ejection has been excellent. So yeah, so it's so far it's pretty cool. I can't wait to see somebody win that. They'll be very happy with it for sure.
That's beautiful, Don. What's the? I see a Zeiss scope on it. What do you have on that? A V4 or what is it?
Yeah, I'm gonna have a V4, 4 to 16. I know I told you a 3 to 12 by 44, but I haven't been able to acquire one of those yet. So we're gonna do a 4 to 16 by 44. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, and it's a Zeiss Conquest, as you said, a V4. So they're a really nice scope, and they're probably I think for the money they're probably the best hunting scope if you like a second focal plane scope. They're just excellent. I use those on all my hunting rifles.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so you're gonna build your dream rifle. Money's no object. Um, just so, and you're gonna use it for mountain hunting, sheep, goats, whatever that. What are you gonna build? Talk me through that ideal build that
280
you.
Ackley, probably a climber stock, benchmark number 2 fluted barrel, and probably a Pure Precision skeleton action. Or I just built 25 Creedmoor myself with a Falcor. It's an MT7, but they have a new model of that action. It's called the LW7. I'd probably use one of those to try it out. Yeah. So
Hmm.
it'd be a 280 Ackley more than likely, or the other cartridge that I really like, I've been playing around with a lot the last couple of years is a 6.5 PRC necked up to 7 mm. So it's called the 765 PRCW. Alex Wheeler. And it's the new cartridge that it's kind of the darling of the F class shooters worldwide now, and it's probably the nicest cartridge that I've ever loaded for as far as accuracy and consistency. It's just amazing, and it's like I say, it's just basically a 6.5 PRC necked up to 7 mm, and
Right.
it would be that or the 280 Ackley. If I was going to do the short action, it would be the 6.5 PRCW. Yeah,
Very cool.
yeah. So
Um,
I have a couple of those built as well. Mitch Kendall built me one on a anti XM action and a Wildcat stock, and he basically replicated a Gunworks climber on that stock, and that's a gun I've been hunting with all, basically last 2 years. Is the 6.5 PRCW. Shoot
very cool.
175, yeah, 175 grain burgers at 2,900 feet per second. So it's,
Just hauling ass.
yeah, for that size of cartridge, and it's just so consistently accurate. Every time I drag it to the range, I put. Last time I was there with the Creedmoor, I always take a few rifles and I put 5 shots into 5/8 of 5/8 of an inch, out of it, and so it's boringly accurate. Actually, is that cartridge? And I of course, a benchmark barrel always helps, but that cartridge seems to be, just so I've had two built, and I have a third target rifle sitting there. I wait for my stock for it, so I was gonna. It's got a 32-inch barrel on it, so I want to goof around with that. It's kind of like an F-class build.
Very cool.
But yeah, that would be, and just getting back to the parts of that, a climber stock. Anybody that, if you get a chance to shoulder a climber stock, doesn't have to be a climber stock, but as long as there's several stocks like that. Peak 44 makes the Blacktooth. Altera Arms has their stock that's very similar to a climber. So there's a few around, and just the makeup of the climber stock, when you shoulder it, I don't know if I've ever shouldered a steadier platform in a hunting rifle. It's just an amazing stock, right? So anytime you can simulate that stock, it works for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, genius design for sure.
Yeah.
New calibers. What's hot? You just talked about the 7.6.5. What else? What else is new out there?
Backcountry. You know what? I rebarreled one of my existing 280s into 7mm backcountry, and it's kind of a neat cartridge. I've only, of course, I haven't hand loaded for it. I think it's more of a factory ammo, type of rifle, and it's talk about hauling ass. I'm shooting a 168 grain LRX at 3,100 feet per second out of factory ammo. So that cooked along pretty good. And I think that cartridge is kind of designed in the U.S. where they can use those can, if they call it, or whatever you want to. I call it a silencer, but it's I guess they call it I forget the name of a can anyway. So they can use a short barrel with a can on the end of it, and it kind of muffles the sound, and that's kind of the new darling down there, I guess. But that's a neat cartridge. The other one, anytime you can build something off of a PRC cartridge is pretty neat. 7 PRC just come out, but I did order a reamer for a 25 PRC, so it would be just a 6.5 PRC neck down to 25 caliber. So I'm going to build one of those, or have one built. The reamer should be here any day. So that's it's not a factory cartridge, but it should be make a nice. I was thinking for a sheep hunting rifle, it would make a great cartridge, right? Flat shooting and fast, and not so much recoil.
Awesome. Don, you look at sort of the legacy calibers like a 270 or a 300 Winchester, or 30 odd 308, and then you kind of look at, like, sort of fast forward to modern day, like the 6.5 PRC. Sort of, you've got these sort of calibers that have come and gone, like the 7 STW and all these ones that kind of flash in the pan stuff. What's that caliber that's going to be, sort of the last generation of calibers in the last 10 years here, that's going to be, or maybe one that's coming that hasn't quite hit yet, that's going to last?
Well, it's, I think you'll always, depending on cartridge or caliber, you got to look at cartridges, stuff like the Shooting Time Westerner or rum cartridges, for what you get out of them and the amount of powder and recoil out of, like bigger cartridges like a 300 rum, or, 28 rum or 7mm rum, those 378 Weatherby, they're just not practical for hunting. They use way too much powder. They recoil too much. The actions, you have to use a heavier action or a long action, and they just don't make for a good sheep hunting platform, of course. So as far as I don't think you'll ever see, calibers go away, because there's just too many cartridges on certain calibers. Now lately, because of the 25 Creedmoor come out from Hornady. And that's the other thing. Hornady supports all those cartridges so well that you're not going to really see anything go away. Certain cartridges like 7 Somme that aren't there's lots of cartridges that aren't well supported through factory auctions. Those are usually the ones that go by the weight side, and then just diehard guys, like guy like Omar, he loves Seven Saw. He thinks it's the best cartridge on the planet, and it, very well could be for, it's got the perfect balance of performance and lack of recoil, and and you can put it in a short action. So that kind of thing. You're always going to see changes in the history of cartridges for sure. That's just inevitable. They come and go, right? For a long time, the Seven Saw, you hardly even heard about it. Then because Gunworks was chambering it and Omar supported it, and it became pretty hot for a while. And now, of course, with that, I looked at it and I thought, well, I don't like it because it's got a 550 case diameter. So I just went to the 6.5 PRCW, and then you can, it just better supported through the PRC case size, right? Stuff like that. But there'll always be changes and coming and goings, right? But and like I said, nowadays the 25 caliber is taken off, so they're finding that between, you look at it, say the 6 millimeter Creedmoor as opposed to the 25, and then the 6.5 Creedmoor. Well, they're finding that you get slightly better BCs and in the 25 over the 6.5 even. So and it's a little faster, longer bullets, better sectional density. So things change, and of course Hornady's great at marketing stuff, so that always helps.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I think that can you talk a little bit about spike camps and the that platform they're building over there that Ed Thompson's working on? You were involved in that. Talk a little bit about that donation rifle that they're working on for this fundraiser.
Yeah, so Ed Thompson and Chuck Peeling went on a sheep hunt, and I guess they have a lot of downtime when you're sheep hunting, just sitting glassing, and they got time to chat. And Ed, he built himself a couple of woodstock rifles, and incidentally, one was a 7mm, a 7 SAUM rather, and it was a beautiful rifle. I almost bought that gun. I kept looking at it and looking at it, but a woodstock, I love a woodstock, but they're just so impractical for hunting in BC, right? But everybody should own a nice woodstock rifle. There's just no getting away from it. So that rifle had some figure in the wood that you just never see, right? So anyway, so I guess one thing led to another, and Ed says, Chuck, I think it would be great if we built a woodstock rifle for a donation rifle, and we raffle it off on the platform and at Spike Camp. And one thing led to another. As soon as Chuck got home, he called me, "Hey, you got any parts? This is what we're thinking." So I got them a barrel action and a trigger, and got it chambered up by Mitch Kendall and shipped it off to Ed. And he had a few 3 or 4 wood blanks at home, and he's whittling away on it right now as we speak. So we chambered it in 280, and it's going to have a carbon fiber barrel, 280 Ackley rather, and then it's going to have a carbon fiber barrel, a Defiance action, a Trigger Tech trigger. So it should be a really nice rifle. And of course, so far looking at the wood and the figure in that, it's coming along. It's kind of a neat project because Ed posts up all the time his progress, every few days as he comes along with something different with the stock and how he's doing it. So it's kind of neat to see, right? A guy building a woodstock rifle from scratch. So
It's fun to watch the evolution because
it is.
he's very honest, and he's like, oh yeah, we ran into this problem today, we've got this issue, and of course it's not a factory setup, like he's building this bloody thing by hand. So
exactly. So even funnier. So Mitch calls, and when they started this project just this fall, they come up with this idea, build a woodstock rifle. I says, dude, our convention is in February. You haven't got a lot of time. I mean, it's one thing, you can throw together give them a bunch of parts and throw together a custom rifle, but a woodstock rifle, that's a lot of work. And I'm like, holy mackerel, we got to get on this. So I drove the parts to Mitch. He chambered it up in a couple of days. I drove back up there, got the parts. Wouldn't you know it, I boxed it up and I priority posted to Ed. that afternoon, Canada Post goes on strike. So here this barreled action is sitting in the mail. Oh, I was so frustrated. And I'm thinking, oh my God, now what do we do? Right. Like, I mean, and then of course that happens. I leave to Prince Rupert to work for 2 weeks. And, I had my wife going to the post office every day trying to see if she could get the parcel, but there was nobody there, right? Because they had never even shipped it out. So, but thankfully, it got shipped, and he finally received it. We were thinking, well, what are we going to do now? Well, we'll have to give him donate another rifle for the platform, I guess. Otherwise, so that's the things you're dealing with. But when it comes to building a custom rifle, it's not something that happens overnight, and that's why I'm always buying parts about a year in advance, so I don't run out.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
So
But
anyone that's
anyway,
in,
getting back to that, like you said, you can go on the Spike Camp platform and
yeah,
follow along on its building of that rifle. It's very cool, and like you said, he's been very honest and upfront. And like you said, if he has a problem, he's like, "Oh, this ain't gonna work," or So it's neat to see the evolution of a handcrafted wood stocked rifle, and while he's very good at what he does, it's time consuming, and so it's going to be a beautiful rifle when it's done, and I'll be buying a ticket on that one. That's for sure.
yeah, yeah. You and me both. Actually, I can't, unfortunately, but yeah, I'll be bugging people to buy it, and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I would get the wife to buy one for you.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's going to be beautiful, and Ed's just so meticulous in the work he's done, and I think the cool thing about it is. There's just so many things. Like, of course, Chuck has been sheep hunting for 10 years, never killed a sheep, had opportunity this year. There's a story in our magazine. It's called The One. He's written about it on his platform. He just did the podcast. They had that live stream that they did with Ed Thompson and Andre Brosso last week on Spike Camp. So he tells the story there. And then, so that whole motivation of Spike Camp came out of this vision that Chuck had. And then, his vision is to give back to the conservation community, and he's done that.
absolutely.
So,
And it's kind of neat how he's, as you say, he's kind of any member has to belong to Wild Sheep Society, whether it be Alberta or BC or Wild Sheep Society. You have to be supportive in a conservation sort of way. So he's done a fantastic job over there. Chuck, he has great podcasts. He did a rifle review on his new 284 built by who's that fella in Alberta there? That
uh,
I forget
hmm.
the name of the titanium. He was at the Wild Sheep show.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, of course, Mike Drury,
yeah,
Alpine Rifle Craft.
Alpine
Yeah, of
rifle craft,
course. Yeah,
and
yeah,
Chuck did a review on the rifle that he built for him, and he did just an excellent job of the review. So Chuck's done just a marvelous job. Him and his son. They've they should be commended for all the work they do, and especially a young fellow to stay that interested in helping his dad out, is pretty cool. But
yeah,
yeah, and then again, Chuck, he's quite a hunter himself. He goes at it pretty hard, and I always admire him through. So again, I live vicariously through Chuck Peeling and his hunting trips. And incidentally, I get to go to Africa with him and Gary Flack in May. So I'm looking forward to that. The six of us, our wives and those two guys, are all going together on a trip. So I'll get an education, I'm sure. That's
yeah. That's
my first trip,
awesome.
yeah, anywhere.
What are you taking for a gun over there? What are you taking for a
I'm going
rifle?
to take Gary built me a 9.3 by 62. A funny story about that rifle. So about 7, 8 years ago, he's at a gun show and he texts me. He says, "Oh, I picked up a 9.3 by 62 barrel for you. It's a blank Shaw 1 and 12 twist 9.3 or 366 barrel." And I'm under my breath, I'm saying to myself, "What the hell am I going to need that for?" So I kind of, yeah, okay, thanks, Gary. Anyway, so he hangs on to it. And then he calls me after the last convention last year and says, "Hey, we want a trip to Africa." For four, so we're going. You and Karen and myself and Jean are going, and we're going to go with Chuck and his wife. So right away, I thought, well, I can't go there with synthetic stock rifle. I got to have a controlled round feed wood stock rifle so I can fit right in with history. And so I picked up a Winchester Model 70 controlled round feed 30-06 as a donor rifle, and I always loved the featherweight stock with the Schnabel forehand and the fleur de lis checkering. So I dropped that off to Gary, and an old time flat. He chambers up that barrel that I didn't need, and thankfully he did buy it. And sure enough, I get to the range and I start shooting this thing. Well, recoil is I guess is probably a polite way to put it, but it's so accurate. I was putting 5 shots into 3/4 of an inch with 250 grain Accubons, and I've got the 250 grain Accubons doing 2,700 feet per second out of a 24-inch barrel. So it's just cooking, and that's just with the max load on BiG BoaR's website with N540, and the gun turned out beautiful, of course. And yeah, so I'm going to take that and my 280 Ackley.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
I
fantastic.
guess we'll see. I'm going to shoot Accubons out of that, and then 152 grain LRX out of my 280 Ackley. So we'll see. I don't know if I need 2 guns or not, but I don't know about that 9.362. It's well, I shot it a few times freehand at the range, so recoil wasn't too bad standing, but definitely off the bench it gets your attention.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm excited for you, Don. That's great,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
so glad that you're going with those guys. I'll tell you, they got that trip at our show with Boswell Jacobs, and they honestly they were sitting right behind me, and they were like little kids. They were so excited, and they're like, "Yeah, we're Don's coming with us to Africa," and they were just Gary was so and Chuck they were just like 2 little kids. Like I
Oh
couldn't
yeah,
believe
they
it.
are. Yeah.
It
Well,
was hilarious.
yeah,
Yeah.
Gary, I think he built a 9.3 by 62 as well, and he also built a custom rifle for somebody there. So he's going to donate one of the rifles, a woodstock rifle to. I don't know if it's the owner or one of the guides there. I guess we'll
Right.
find out when we get there. And that was what I thought when I go there. If because I'll probably never need that rifle again. If it works out, maybe I'll donate it to one of the guides there.
Oh, that's well, and Don, you've done that too. You're such a generous individual. I remember uh, Dennis Kitto was always doing the photography at our show, and I, did you just donate or did you win and then donate it? But you
Oh,
donated that rifle to Dennis.
I had Gary build a 30-06 and I give it to him. Yeah.
It was just, yeah, he was just,
Yeah. Yeah. I think he shed a
just,
few tears there on that one.
yeah, he was pretty emotional. Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
the rifle that I I won the Jurassic Classic 270 WSM that Omar had donated had a Swarovski scope on it, if I recall, and it was I believe it was a Fierce rifle.
It
Anyway,
was, yeah.
Dave's wife, I get a text from Dave Marsh's wife, and she says, "Would you like a date with Chris Wheeler, or would you like a new rifle?" And I'm like, huh? What's she talking about? As it turns out, I guess I got drawn and I won the rifle, the 270 WSM. Uh,
Yeah.
and I didn't like that cartridge, so I donated it back to the Wild Sheep Society. But
Yeah, amazing, Don.
yeah, so hopefully we got to raise money twice on that rifle, so that was good.
That's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Just your generosity.
Thank you.
Um, so you talk about donating, supporting, and then, action on the ground. Like, what does that look like? And I know you're up at your cabin here a couple of weeks ago and coming back, and you got to see um, something you rarely see. And I think that, that's something you're directly contributing to. Let's talk about that sort of encounter you had coming home from Lillooet or you're up in your cabin there.
Okay, so we were Loon Lake. Our family had a cabin at Loon Lake, just north of Cache Creek since 1950. So it's just a little shack, but it's our hunting shack, and we love it. And it's kind of a traditional family thing. Every year we go, especially late November during the rut, or first few days of December if we can get away. Of course, I was sick this year, so I didn't get to go when I wanted to. Um, anyway, so I did get to go for a couple days with my older brother and his son Dylan, and it's So it's just something that we always look forward to, right? Because we used to go before my son passed away. We all would get together with his cousins there, and it was kind of an annual thing, just like our Cranbrook hunting trips. And so you know, it was a great time again. The weather was nice. It wasn't too cold for me. I'm getting older, and I don't know if I like the cold so much anymore. But it was hovering around, maybe -5 up to 5 above. So the weather was perfect, but it was conditions were really icy. So the deer hunting, we've seen lots of deer, but you sure had a tough time getting close to anything, and the snow was pretty crunchy and icy. But anyway, so driving home, my brother and I, of course, we've seen some sheep at the Mounds Ranch too. I forgot to tell you that. One ram call, and then one ewe collared. So I took some pictures of that out with the Mounds Ranch. And then when we left, we got to Spence's Bridge, and there was about 40 sheep there in a group, 30 to 40. We didn't actually count them. And there was one nice ram, one just about full curl. And then so we carry on, and I says, "Oh, there's some sheep." So we stopped, just halfway down to Lytton, I guess, and there was 27 sheep in this band, and there was 5 rams in it, a couple of really nice rams. And we looked to the right, and here's a band of 80 sheep, and there was quite a few rams in that band as well. And then just right at the graveyard down by Lytton, there was another 50 sheep in there with a couple of decent rams in there as well. So, and we physically counted them after that. And so there was over 190 sheep between the 4 bands of rams that we've seen, or band of sheep, sorry. So it was great to see. And I've never seen a band of rams or a band of sheep that big at one time in the canyon. And I've driven up and down there a lot. So, especially in hunting season. So it was great to see. It was my brother. He was just giggling. He couldn't believe it. He was just, he was pretty excited to see that. Even though we didn't get a deer, it was good to see.
Did you grow up with a fire, like a gun in the bush? Was that a thing, Don, or
I think
how'd that work?
Well, of course, my dad, he was quite a bit older, but he hunted his whole life up until he couldn't, of course. And by the time I was old enough to hunt, he couldn't hunt. So, but he was supportive of the industry and or going hunting. And so, me and my older brother, we started hunting. I started. It's funny. I just found my core card from 1980. Oh gosh, I was only it was earlier than that, I guess, late 70s, and it was a 2-week course. Lloyd Unraw had taught at Maple Ridge here, and at that time, so it was funny. I was just going through some stuff, and I found my old 4 card from the course that I did it. But anyway, so I started hunting when I was about 14 with a guy named Gary Oling. He took me hunting, and then when I was old enough to drive myself, my brother and I, we'd start going hunting. And then my uncle that gave us the cabin at Loon Lake, or left us the cabin there, he used to take me hunting when I was younger. And from there, so I've always done, so basically mule deer has been my passion my whole life, really. I just, I don't know, something about them. They always outsmart me. So I guess that's why I like going. Yeah. So that's when I started pretty early, I guess. And done lots of deer hunting, not so much sheep hunting, a little bit of sheep hunting, lots of elk hunting. So we started every year we go to Cranbrook elk hunting, and we've done that for over 35 years to the same place. So this year, my daughter came along and she shot her first deer, so that was pretty exciting. And we probably the most action I've ever seen elk hunting in the 35 years we've been to that spot. I've seen more bulls. We were within yards of bulls and cows, and sadly, we seen 3 6-point bulls that we didn't get a shot at. But like I said, it was probably the most exciting trip I've ever action bugling. It was just it was like something out of a hunting video. It was just nonstop every day. So it was a lot of fun. Probably the best trip I've had elk hunting was this year. So my daughter got a full education on that.
Oh, that's awesome. The one thing, Don, let's just touch a little bit, like, to wrap this up on legacy. So, you talked about um, Dave, and you do the BiG BoaR rifle, and then of course, your so now your daughter Lindsay, she's gone out with you, and of course you had Dylan out with you, who's your nephew and your brother. And of course, would be remiss if we weren't to recognize Brad. And I know you lost your son a couple years ago. Um, I don't want to put you on the spot, or I know it's an emotional thing, but just talk about legacy and how important that is. And you've got Lindsay out there and Dylan out there now, and I know family is so important to you. So um, I have a feeling, Don, you give and you care so much because you have this legacy and you want to leave the better world a better place for your kids and
Oh,
your grandkids. And
absolutely. And as you say, the legacy of it, if we don't support it, we're not going to have it. That's the
Mhm.
thing about it. So uh, maybe that, I'm not sure why I go at that part of it so hard, but I just do. I guess I don't know. I don't think too much about the the donation part of it, but I enjoy it. I guess that's probably the biggest part of it. But like you said, if people don't look after the sport or support, through conservation, you know, there they won't be there for the next generation, and that's something we really, as you get older, you think more about that, of course, and we really need to be supportive of all aspects of hunting, and supportive of it because it seems like we're under attack. Whether it be through guns or cutbacks in hunting. Like the grizzly bear hunt. That was a total. That one drives me crazy because it was totally political. There, was a perfectly viable, sustainable hunt, and it made some people a living, and they took it away for no reason. It supported itself, and there's no reason we couldn't have a grizzly bear hunt. So those are the kind of things, as far as conservation goes, every person that hunts needs to step up and support one way or another through, pick a group, whether it be, the Mule Deer Foundation or the Wild Sheep Society of BC. There's a Campfire One or One Campfire. There's lots of different aspects to the hunting community that you can support. There's the Goat Alliance. And everybody should help out one way or another because if you don't, you're not going to have it down the road, and that's the reality of it. And
Mm.
it's such a great lifestyle, um, and thankfully my nephew, since losing my son, him and his a young friend of his, Brandon Gee, and then Dylan Lynum, they're so passionate about hunting, and I kind of live vicariously through Brandon Gee and another guy, Barry Watson, is another young fellow that he's supported of the Wild Sheep Society, and he's another guy that's just a super gentleman, and he's quite an accomplished hunter himself too. He shot a monstrous bull elk this year, but he's always he's another guy that supports the Wild Sheep Society, and those are the type of people you want, right? So everybody has to
Yeah.
do their part. So
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I
yeah,
can't thank you enough, Don, for being part of our family, our community, and just your vision, your legacy. And my only complaint with you is I don't get enough time with you, Don. I just
yeah.
but
Well, that's
I love our conversations and our time together, and it's and I know you're a super busy guy and lots on the go, but I sure love it when I get a few minutes to spend time with you.
for sure, and I appreciate you having me on. It's a real pleasure, and I'm lucky to be part of it. So hopefully, I can get over to the island and we can take the gals out for dinner one day. I'd really like that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Don. And I guess we 9 days to Christmas, so I guess it's
Yeah,
fitting that I don't know if I'm still allowed to say Happy Merry Christmas, but Merry
you are.
Christmas and
Incidentally, it's actually my dad's birthday today. Oh, one more thing before we go. Chris Kind. Have you ever heard of Chris Kind? He's an author,
I don't
lives
think
in
so.
Clinton. He was a
I
sheep
don't.
guide for Gary Powell for 17 years.
Okay, yeah.
He donated 7 of his books so I'm going to make up a basket with a bottle of whiskey and some glasses.
Oh,
Yeah. So
nice.
here's one of his books.
I've got that book. I do
Yes.
know that book. Yes.
Yeah. So
Super
he's
cool.
donated
Yeah.
seven autograph, all seven of his books autographed, and I'm going to make up a basket for our convention in February.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's
very
awesome, Don.
cool. Very good of him.
Yeah, and that's a great book. I love that book. Actually, I think Nolan Wanup gave me that as a gift, and it's autographed as
Autograph.
well. And Nolan,
Yeah.
yeah, Nolan gave it to me as a gift a couple years ago for Christmas. So,
Yeah. So
yeah,
yeah,
it's super cool. Yeah, great book for sure. Yeah, I knew the name. I couldn't remember how, but yeah, that's awesome.
I've known Chris
Very
for
cool.
quite a few years, well before our flying sheep hunt. So I quickly, Dylan wanted to meet him, so I invited him for lunch. We went to Clinton, had lunch with him, and he brought some books and signed some to Dylan and my brother, and so we had a great time. So every time I'm up at the cabin, I try to take him out for lunch. He's getting on, but he's just a great guy, and he's got some great books out. So if anybody can find the time to look them up, they're a good read for sure.
Yeah, I definitely would recommend that. And we got so many incredible authors in our space too, right? Like those, I know you mentioned Bill Pastrick's book and Dream Rams, and
Yeah.
just yeah, we're pretty darn lucky to get the kind of books, and there's so many great stories. And the interesting, Dawn, I'm actually doing a podcast tonight with Frances. Oh shoot, I can't think of her last name right now, but it's Frank Gallotta's daughter.
Oh wow, yeah, because he was a guy,
So
right?
yeah, so Frank Gallotta, he guided the Chadwick, he
Yeah,
guided LS Chadwick, the Chadwick Ram. So obviously Frank
cool.
died, passed away, in
Years
the
back.
60s, I think,
Yeah.
70s maybe. But his daughter, Frances, who's now in her 80s, she's coming on the podcast. And actually we had her the COVID year, it was at 19 or 20, I can't even remember now. Frances was coming to the show, and she was going to do a talk, and Shockey was going to do a talk. So it was Frances and Jim were going to do each speak, and then kind of like almost a Q&A type thing. And then of course we canceled it all, and we've never really rescheduled. So tonight I'm doing that podcast. That
Oh,
Jonathan
cool.
Proctor is friends with her, and he's facilitated that. So yeah, just you think of the rich history we have in British Columbia here, and I think sometimes we take it for granted because it's just BC, but you think of the rich history we have here, and the quality of rams and the stones and other sheep too. But it's just there's such a history in British Columbia for.
Oh, for sure. Well, there's another great guy, Jonathan Proctor. He's a great supporter of Wild Sheep Society, and it's funny. I met him through online, just buying and selling stuff with him, and yeah, no, and he's been very supportive of anything I do. So yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Jonathan's just salt of the earth, and
Yeah.
just yeah, really interesting guy. So I just love having him on the podcast on his own in his own
Yeah.
right. But he's going to be on tonight with when I do that podcast with
Well, I gotta watch that.
Francis. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I don't know if I think we're doing it over the phone because Francis is a little old school. But I'm hoping to secure some of Frank's photos and that sort of stuff. And she's donated one of his Rams. So we've got one of Frank's old Rams that
Cool.
we're going to auction that off. And then we've also got some of his paintings. And we've also got one of his old firearms that we're going to sell as well, auction that off. So
Oh, very
um,
cool.
pretty
Yeah.
cool when you think about you've got something that was tied to LS Chadwick in 1936 when they took that ram.
Yeah.
It's
Do you
it's a
recall the
pretty cool.
cartridge used to shoot that ram?
Well, I don't know. It was Chadwick that shot at him. I think it was Chadwick that killed it. I don't know.
Well, the
Bill's got
initial
a
shot. The initial
yeah.
shot. Anyway.
Oh yeah. So did he yeah, they what was the story there? I know Bill tells that story in his book. I can't
He
remember what the story is.
was shooting a 404 Jaffrey because he was protected
Really?
by the grizzly bears. Yes. So not really a lightweight sheep hunting cartridge.
Wow. Wow. Crazy. Yeah. Yeah, for
But
sure.
anyway,
So I
I
don't
can't wait to watch that.
yeah, it's going to be really cool. So,
Well,
well,
thanks again,
Don,
and best of the season to you and your family. And thanks again. It's been a pleasure.
yeah, you too, Don, all the best to you and Karen and the whole family there. So appreciate all you do. And yeah, hopefully we can get together for for some
Betcha.
New Year's cheer in the New Year's here. So
Sounds good.
thank you.
Looking forward to it, Carl. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye bye.